The Education and Training Act 2020 stipulates that every kaiako must meet requirements for satisfactory recent teaching for every practising certificate renewal. This is 2 years of uninterrupted teaching in the past 5 years. However, the Act also allows the Council to consider shorter periods, recognising that a kaiako's career can include periods where their teaching service may be broken up, or they've completed very little or no teaching. In this short presentation, we'll discuss how we assess whether a kaiako meets the satisfactory recent teaching requirements, the teacher refresh processes that can be used to renew a practising certificate if the kaiako can't meet the SRT requirements. The types of refresh process we'll talk about are new beginning teacher practice plans, return to practice plans, and the teacher education refresh programs. As we noted earlier, the satisfactory recent teaching requirement is 2 years uninterrupted teaching in the past 5 years or a shorter period approved by the Council at its discretion. When we're assessing satisfactory recent teaching to renew a practising certificate, the kaiako can also provide evidence of overseas teaching experience for consideration. We'll talk more about the criteria for this evidence in the next slide. Our discretionary powers are applied on a case-by-case basis within the parameters of what the legislation and policy permits. Our ability to apply discretion underlies the change in the registration and certification policy, from a focus on formulas for calculating shorter periods of service to a more nuanced approach that allows the Council to consider the evidence each kaiako provides and then make a decision within the parameters of the policy. Being able to apply discretion also recognises that a kaiako's career may include periods of leave or changes in role type where they may not hold a full-time or permanent part-time role, or where teaching service is broken up. When considering shorter periods of teaching service, the assessment will be based on both the time the kaiako has spent teaching and how recent the service was. If a kaiako isn't able to meet the satisfactory recent teaching requirement through an assessment of a shorter period of service, they also have the option to renew their practising certificate using one of the refresh processes. We'll talk more about this in a moment. New Zealand registered kaiako who are seeking to renew their practising certificate but may not have sufficient New Zealand teaching service to meet satisfactory recent teaching requirements can also request consideration of overseas teaching service. This is another enhancement to the renewal process and minimises those instances where a kaiako may need to complete a refresh process to renew their practising certificate. When a kaiako indicates in their application that they would like overseas teaching experience considered, we ask for the following information: a list of teaching service in the last 5 years, evidence of teacher registration or its equivalent in the country or countries they have been working in, a letter attesting to their professional standing from the country's regulatory body or equivalent, a testimonial from a professional leader or equivalent who has most recently employed them, evidence of a satisfactory performance review or appraisal. If needed, we can also ask for a job description. This helps us to understand the nature of the teaching role, and we can also ask for their employment agreement. The renewal process now provides a clearer path for kaiako who can't meet satisfactory recent teaching requirements to renew using a refresh process. New rules for teacher refresh processes were gazetted with effect 22 October 2021. The rules enabled us to operationalise a new provision in the Act which means a teacher refresh process can be used to renew a practising certificate when the kaiako can't meet satisfactory recent teaching requirements. The effect of this is that when kaiako use a refresh process to renew, they can renew the same practising certificate type. For the purposes of practising certificate renewal, the refresh process acts as a proxy for meeting the satisfactory recent teaching requirement, which would otherwise be met using teaching practice in a centre, kura or school. Once a registration officer has completed an assessment of the kaiako's service and has determined that discretion can't be applied for a shorter period of service, They will contact the kaiako to discuss the option of renewing using one of the teacher refresh processes. This flowchart sets out the process the registration officer uses to assess satisfactory recent teaching. Kaiako holding a Tōmoa practising certificate can renew once using a practice plan. If they need to renew their Tōmoa practising certificate again, they will need to complete a teacher education refresh program rather than a practice plan. There are a range of teacher education refresh programs available, including some where the kaiako can complete the program while they're employed. Kaiako holding a Tūturu Full Category 1 or Pūmo Full Category 2 practising certificate can renew using a practice plan for a longer period. This recognises their experience in the teaching profession. Note that most kaiako who work regularly as relieving teachers and hold a Pūmo Full Category 2 practising certificate will be able to meet satisfactory recent teaching requirements and renew without needing to complete a practice plan. When a kaiako renews their Tūturu practising certificate using a return to practice plan, we'll also do an assessment of their role type. So in some instances, usually for subsequent renewals using a practice plan, the kaiako may move to Pūmo because they've had a change of role type. If the kaiako continues to renew using a return to practice plan, but also continues to have no or very limited satisfactory recent teaching, at the next renewal, the registration officer would discuss whether they want or need to renew. At this stage, the registration officer would provide advice about the pathway to renewal if their practising certificate lapses. In short, they will need to complete a refresh process. Where it's been a considerable period of time since the kaiako last taught, we may require them to complete a teacher education refresh program. The period of time when the kaiako may be required to complete a teacher education refresh program isn't stipulated in the registration and certification policy. This means we can and do look at individual applications to first determine what, if any, discretion can be applied for satisfactory recent teaching, and to establish the best pathway for the kaiako. If a kaiako has taken a period of leave, for example parental leave, and are seeking to renew Tūturu, but have no service, they can renew using the return to practice plan. In these circumstances, they will not automatically move to Pūmo because they have not had a change of role type. In fact, they have had no role. When the kaiako returns to teaching, their professional leader might look at the gap in their teaching service and, as part of the professional growth cycle process, identify any areas they may need to focus on for their professional growth and learning. There are two types of practice plans. A new beginning teacher practice plan for kaiako who are seeking to renew Tōmoa. A return to practice plan for experienced kaiako seeking to renew Tūturu or Pūmo. The practice plans are focused on using and meeting ngā paerewa, the standards. They provide a means for kaiako to reflect on how theoretical and practical changes in teaching may positively impact on their current or future practice. They allow kaiako to identify their priorities for growth and learning and set out what they intend to do to integrate these learnings into their teaching practice. The practice plans include a number of prompts to help kaiako think about the areas they need to focus on for their professional growth and learning. What is my current knowledge or experience? What are the areas where I need to grow or strengthen my knowledge or expertise? Are there changes in teaching knowledge and practice that I need to understand? What do I need to do to integrate these changes into my teaching practice? What would a professional leader see or hear that indicates I'm growing and developing in this space? If you have questions about your application to renew your practising certificate, please email us at inquiries@teachingcouncil.nz or visit our website where our chatbot Mero can help answer your questions.